Hello, Steve White, Steve Outs 89. Well, I'm continuing on with my sci-fi movie marathon, and this time I watched The Blob, the original The Blob from 1958. Now, I think I saw this a long time ago on video. A friend of mine who was a film student along with me, suggested it because she likes Steve McQueen and he was in it. And it is his first leading role. He's very young. And he plays a very likeable character. I didn't really like I wasn't really a fan. I hadn't really seen anything that he did. He was good in this film. It was done by Paramount. It was made on 110,000 and made 4 million. So it was a pretty big hit back in the day. And there are parts of it that are really good. The characters are kind of believable, relatable, likable. The female character, played by, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, Anita Corsaut. She was very strong and assertive, and confronting the patriarchy and speaking up for herself and everything else. Which if they'd made this film today, people would call her woke. And this is 1958, so it's pretty funny. But it has some nice effects. Some of the blob effects are really horrifying. When you first see the blob attach itself to a man's hand and then slowly absorb his hand and it turns into this, it's just gross. When you see the blob in other scenes, it does look a little silly in some ways, but it looks real, but it just looks kind of round, and it could have been done a little bit more gory, I think. Looks a little cartoony by today's standards, but it still looks pretty good. Now, there's a couple of scenes where the direction was a bit off. I couldn't really understand why they were using certain angles, or why they sort of had one shot and the dialogue would be half of the screen for a minute. I'm like, did they not get the coverage? Did the director not have the experience? Did they not have the budget? Could they not do second unit? Like, what happened? It's a Paramount picture. I sort of expected more. It feels like more of something from the 30s some ways, where they hadn't quite perfected the art form yet. So there's a few weird moments like that, and the last couple of scenes really lack tension because there's no music in the background to ramp it up, and things are sort of happening and people are just sort of standing there watching it. And there's a couple of nice effects shot of the blob where it basically is large enough that it covers a whole building and traps people inside it, and you realise they had limitations with the effects and the practical, so I get that, but that doesn't really explain some of the cuts and the director's directing choices and that. So that was a bit odd. There are a few scenes that should have been really tense because they were building up kind of well, and then they would just sort of lay flat, and I'm not quite sure what that was. But aside from that, the discovery that the blob, doesn't like the cold, so they freeze it with fire extinguishers and stuff like that, that was all fairly clever and fairly well done. And then the ending where they basically take it while it's frozen and dump it in the Antarctic, and that's the end, or is it? Was quite well done. I was kind of surprised. Like, the writing was good, the acting was good, but the direction and the photography, there was something a bit off. And there are a few scenes where, because there's a big part of the film where the kids have these. I should really explain some of the story, but I just assume the thing. Basically, two kids are out. Well, they're not necking because the girl, speaks out for herself and so forth, and isn't just being passive and so forth, which is why I like her. And then they see a meteorite hit. They go to find it, and they find that an older man has found it first, and it's the blob, which is inside this meteorite, attached itself to his arm. They take him to a doctor's surgery. The blob kills the nurse and the doctor, and then when they go back, because the doctor asks them to go see if they can find this guy's house where he lives, find out who he is, because he's got no ID or anything. When the Steve McQueen character comes back, he's also named Steve. So when Steve comes back, they can't get in, and they find that he sees the doctor has basically been eaten by the blob, but then he can't find it or any proof, and it's just a big mystery. And the police don't believe him because he's a kid, and there's a whole sort of the kids against the police and trying to convince the police what happened, and then the kids are all trying to warn everyone in the town that something is killing people and the blob is there. And people sort of don't believe it, but they do, but they believe the police when they say there's something that's dangerous and all go home. And there are elements of that all sort of work fairly well. It's also sort of believable in the way the community reacts, the way people react. But like I said, some of the ending scenes should have been really tense, but that wasn't quite there. They were sort of silent and just something was sort of missing. But for the most part, it was a great film. The photography, the acting, the effects, the look of it was all really good. It really felt like quality. And it did really well. It's a classic. I understand why it's a classic, why people still like it. But then they made Beware the Blob, which I watched right after this, and it's so shocking. I'm going to do a review of that next. It was the 1972 sequel, and I just don't know what happened there. But the original is good, and the remake was good. Sequel, no. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the Blob. Bye.